Good morning, all of you all. Chapter number History, chapter number 4, Jainism and Buddhism. The causes for the rise of Buddhism and Jainism: early life of Mahavira and his teachings, early life of Buddha and his teachings, the spread of Buddhism, causes for the decline of Buddhism in India. The 6th century BC is considered a wonderful century in history. Great thinkers like Buddha, Mahavira, Heraclitus, Zoroaster, Confucius, and Lao Tse lived and preached their ideas in this century. In India, the republican institutions were strong in the 6th century BC. This enabled rise of heterodox sects and against the orthodox religion dominated by rites and rituals. Among them, the most successful were Jainism and Buddhism, whose impact on the Indian society was remarkable. Causes for the rise of Jainism and Buddhism. The primary cause for the rise of Jainism and Buddhism was the religious unrest in India in the 6th century BC. The complex rituals and sacrifices advocated in the later Vedic period were not acceptable to the common people. The sacrificial ceremonies were also found to be too expensive. The superstitious beliefs and mantras confused the people. The teachings of Upanishads, an alternative to the system of sacrifices, were highly philosophical in nature and therefore not easily understood by all. Therefore, what was needed in the larger interest of the people was a simple, short, and intangible way to salvation for all people. Such religious teaching should also be in a language known to them. This need was fulfilled by the teaching of Buddha and Mahavira. Other than the religious factors, social and economic factors also contributed to the rise of these two religions. The rigid caste system prevalent in India generated tensions in the society. Higher classes enjoyed certain privileges which were denied to the lower classes. Also, the Kshatriyas had resented the domination of the princely class. It should also to be noted that both Buddha and Mahavira belonged to Kshatriya origin. The growth of trade led to the improvement in the economic conditions of the Vaishyas. As a result, they wanted to enhance their social status, but the orthodox Varna system did not allow this. Therefore, they began to extend support to Buddhism and Jainism. It was this merchant class that extended the chief support to these new religions. Jainism, life of Vardhaman Mahavira, 539 to 467 BC. Vardhaman Mahavira was the 24th Tirthankara of the Jain tradition. He was born at Kundagrama near Vaishali to Kshatriya parents Siddhartha and Trishala. He married Yasoda and gave birth to a daughter. At the age of 30, he became an ascetic and wanderer for 12 years. In the 13th year of his penance, he attained the highest spiritual knowledge about Kaivalya Jnana. Thereafter, he was called Mahavira and Jaina. His followers were called Jains, and his religion, Jainism, he preached his doctrine for 30 years and died at the age of 72 at Pavan near Rajgriha. Teachings of Mahavira. The three principles of Jainism, and also known as three Ratnas, three gems, are right faith, right knowledge, right conduct. KFC, knowledge, faith, and conduct. Right faith is the belief in the teaching and wisdom of Mahavira. Right knowledge is the acceptance of the theory that God is no God and that the world has been existing without a creator until all object possess a soul. Right conduct refers to the refers right conduct refers to the observance of the five great vows: not to enjoy life, not to lie, not to steal, not to acquire property, not to lead immoral life. Both the clergy and laymen had to strictly follow the doctrine of ahimsa. Mahavira regarded all objects, both animate and inanimate, have souls and various degrees of consciousness. They possess life and feel pain when they are injured. Mahavira rejected the authority of the Vedas and objected to be the Vedic rituals. He advocated a very holy and ethical code of life. Even the practice of agriculture was considered sinful as it causes injury to the earth, worms, and animals. Similarly, the doctrine of asceticism and renunciation was also carried to extreme lengths by the practice of starvation, nudity, and other forms of self-torture. Spread of Jainism. Mahavira organized the Sangha to spread his teachings. He admitted both men and women in the Sangha, which consisted of both monks and lay followers. The rapid spread of Jainism was due to the dedicated work of members of the Sangha. It spread rapidly in Western India and Karnataka. Chandragupta Maurya, Kharavela of Kalinga, and the royal dynasties of South India such as the Ganges, the Kadambas, the Chalukyas, and the Rashtrakuta patronized Jainism. By the end of the 4th century BC, there was a serious famine in the Ganges Valley. Many Jain monks led by Bhadrabahu. Bhadrabahu and Chandragupta Maurya came to the Sarvana Belgola in Karnataka. Those who stayed back in North India were led to the monk named Sthulbahu, who changed the code of conduct for the monks. This led to the division of Jainism into two sects: Shvetambaras, white-clad, and Digambaras, sky-clad or naked. The first Jain council was convened at Patliputra by Sthulbahu, the leader of Digambaras, in the beginning of 3rd century BC. The second Jain council was held at Vallabhi in 5th century AD. The final compilation of Jain literature, called 12 Angas, was completed in this council. Buddhism, life of Gautam Buddha, 567 to 487 BC. Gautama Siddhartha, the founder of Buddhism, was born in 567 BC in Lumbini garden near Kapilavastu. His father was Shuddhodana of the Sankhya clan, and mother Mayadevi. As his mother died at childbirth, he was brought up by his aunt Prajapati Gotami. At the age of 16, he married Yashodhara and gave birth to a son, Rahula. The sight of an old man, a diseased man, a corpse, and an ascetic turned his way away from worldly life. He left at home at the age of 29 in the search for truth. He wandered for 7 years and met several teachers but could not get enlightenment. At last he sat under a Bodhi tree at the Bodh Gaya and did intense penance, after which he got enlightenment, nirvana, at the age of 35. Since then he became known as a Buddha and the enlightenment one. He delivered his first sermon at Sarnath near Benares, and for the next 45 years he led the life of a preacher. He died at the age of 80 at Kushinagara. The most important disciple of Buddha was Sariputta, Moggallana, Ananda, Kassapa, and Upali. Kings like Prasenjit of Kosala and Bimbisara and Dasudra of Magadha accepted his doctrines and became his disciples. Buddha in his lifetime spread his message far and wide in North India and visited places like Banaras, Rajgriha, Saraswati, Vaishali, Nalanda, Pataligrama. It should be noted that he did not involve himself in fruitless controversies regarding metaphysical questions like God, soul, karma, rebirth, etc., and concerned himself with the practical problems confronting man. Teaching of Buddha. The Four Noble Truths of Buddha are: the world is full of suffering, the cause of suffering is desire. If desire are get rid of, suffering can be removed. This can be done by following the Eightfold Path. The Eightfold Path consists of right view, right resolve, right speech, right conduct, right livelihood, right effort, right concentration. Buddha neither accepts God nor rejects the existence of God. He laid great emphasis on the law of karma. He argued that the condition of man in his life depends upon his own deeds. He taught that the soul does not exist. However, he emphasized ahimsa. By his love for human beings and all living creatures, he endeared himself to all. He endeared himself to all. Even under the gravest provocation, he did not show the least anger or hatred, and instead conquered everyone by his love and compassion. His religion was identical with morality, and it emphasized purity of thought, word, and deed. He was a rationalist who tried to explain things in the life of light of reason and not on the basis of blind faith. Though he did not make a direct attack on the caste system, he was against any social distinctions and threw upon his order to all. Therefore, Buddhism was more a social than religious revolution. I taught the code. It taught the code of practical ethics and laid down the principles of social equality. Spread of Buddhism. Buddha had Buddha had two kinds of disciples, monks, bhikshus, and the worshippers, lay worshippers, upasikas. The monks were organized into the sangha for the purpose of spreading his teachings. The membership was open to all persons, male and female, and without any caste restrictions. There was a special code for nuns restricting their residence and movement. Sariputta, Moggallana, Ananda were some of the famous monks. The Sangha was governed on democratic lines and was empowered to enforce discipline among its members. Owing the organized efforts made by the Sangha, Buddhism made rapid progress. In North India, even during Buddha's lifetime, Magadha, Kosala, Koshambi, and several republican states of North India embraced his religion about 200 years after the death of Buddha. The famous Mauryan Emperor Ashoka embraced Buddhism. Through his missionary effort, spread Buddhism into West Asia and Ceylon. This as the local religious sect was transformed into the world religion. Buddhist Council. The first Buddhist Council was held at Rajgriha under the chairmanship of Kassapa. Immediately after the death of Buddha, its purpose was to maintain the purity of teachings of Buddha. The second Buddhist Council was convened at Vaishali around 383 BC. The third Buddhist Council was held at Patliputra under the patronage of Ashoka. Mogliputra Tissa presided over it. The final version of three Pitakas was compiled in this council. The fourth Buddhist Council was convened in Kashmir by Kanishka under the chairmanship of Vasumitra Ashwaghosa participated in this council. The new school of Buddhism called Mahayana Buddhism came into existence. During this council, the Buddhism preached by the Buddha and propagated by Ashoka was known as Hinayana. The Buddhist texts were collected and compiled from some 500 years after the death of Buddha. They are known as the three Pitakas, namely the Sutta, the Vinaya, the Abhidhamma Pitaka. They are written in Pali language. Causes for the decline of Buddhism in India. The revival of Buddhism and the rise of Bhagavatism led to the fall of popularity of Buddhism. The use of Pali, the language of the masses as a language of Buddhism was given up from the 1st century AD. The Buddhists began to adopt the Sanskrit, the language of the elite. Therefore, the birth of Mayan Buddhism, the practice of idol worship and making offerings, led to the deterioration of moral standards. Moreover, the attack of the Huns in 5th and 6th centuries and the Turks invaders in 12th century destroyed the monasteries. All these factors contributed to the decline of Buddhism in India. Contribution of Buddhism to Indian culture. Buddhism has made a remarkable contribution to the development of Indian culture. The concept of ahimsa was its chief contribution. Later, it became one of the cherished values of our nation. Its contribution to the art and architecture of India was notable. The stupas at Sanchi, Barhut, and Kaya are wonderful pieces of architecture. Buddhism takes the credit for the chaityas and viharas in different parts of India. It promoted education, thought, residential universities like those at Takshila, Nalanda, and Vikramshila. The language of Pali and other local languages developed through the teachings of Buddhism. It had also promoted the spread of Indian culture to the other parts of Asia. Learning. What learn in this chapter? The religious and other causes for the rise of Buddhism and Jainism. Early life of Mahavira and its principle of Tripitaka. Early life of Gautam Buddha and his important principles like the Four Truth and Eightfold Path. The pattern of Buddhism and formation of Sangha, as well as the spread of Buddhism. Causes for the decline of Buddhism in India and its contribution to the Indian culture.